You're always smiling.
Yeah, it's a
Have you
defense
noticed?
mechanism to avoid dealing with unhealthy emotions.
Good. Let's go under the bonnet. Because I wanted to ask you. You're always what's the fucking word I'm looking for? You're always happy. You're one of these comics that every time I see you out and about, you're just always happy. Have you noticed that about yourself? That your presence is always like positive, happy. You're always smiling. You're always upbeat. You're always energetic. And I'm like, surely this cunt self harms. He has to. There's got to be something bad about you, man. What's under the
I
bonnet?
don't know what to take, where to go from here, Soren. What is under the bonnet? No, look, I think growing up, I had a need to, uh, like, it was an avoidance thing. There was an emotional sort of avoidance thing there, probably, where like just always be happy, but it wasn't even a conscious thing. It was just kind of what I was anyway. But I just like kind of non-confrontational sort of attitude, being like smiling all the time.
Where did that come from? A non-confrontational attitude
I don't know,
to
like
have that approach.
honestly, uh, you know, if you like stuff that you remember, but you're like, I don't think that's how I remember it. But in my head, I'm like, maybe it is, whatever. So I was, this is hilarious. I've actually never mentioned this before ever. It's a strong start. So when I was growing up, I was at school, and me and a mate, we used to be smart asses. So I was never a big guy, but I was always a smart ass joker, and I would like rough and tumble a little bit, but never
Are we in
much.
primary school now? Or?
Primary school, all the way back to there, right? And then one time, I don't even remember what the event was, but I think it was about year seven. I think I did something mean to someone.
What did you do?
I can't remember. I actually can't remember, but I remember the
You
feeling.
fucking blocked it out mentally. You've deleted your file.
Who knows?
You don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't want. Hey, fuck it. I don't want to know. I don't want to deal with that shit.
That's even scarier. 'Cause
apparently, you can go to a hypnotist and they can bring that shit out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually go there and like this girl was telling me she went and like you lying there and then it just slowly gets you into a state and then asks you questions and then you're talking and you don't remember what you're saying, but you're talking out memories that you didn't know you had from when you were young. They're like long buried memories. So you're actually still not remembering it. You're just like having it come out of you, sort of. So it's like tapping into a part of you that you're not actually connected to. When she told me that, I was like, man, I gotta go to a fucking hypnotist. I want to see that shit.
Yeah.
Because my memory was garbage. So
Okay. So
lots of stuff blocked out.
So you did something bad in primary school, but you blocked it out.
Well,
So
yeah,
going back
I
to
feel
that.
like it's actually not that. That's the thing. I feel like it's not that exciting. Whatever it was, it made me feel so bad, like guilty, and I think it might have just been being mean to someone and seeing them feel bad about it, and then me being like, I don't think I want to be mean to people
So
ever.
you can't remember. Look, man, I think kids are allowed to be mean because they're kids, and I was a real. Yeah, I was a cunt. I mean, my report card from grade 6 was John must not tease other children in the playground. But she didn't appreciate the fact that I was learning my comedic skills.
Yeah.
Roasting other kids.
She didn't know you were nailing it.
Oh, yeah, I was crushing. I wish I had a stand-up as a teacher.
Yeah, they would have loved it.
Yeah, like Ben Knight's a teacher. He would have gone, look, he's going hard. He's a bit of a cunt, but look, he's got some funny lines there.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
good. This could go. Yeah, he could be either comedian or president.
But kids are brutal, especially at school. Like, do you remember some stuff that you did that was brutal?
See, that's the thing. My memory's really bad, like especially from those younger years, and I've got a million theories about why that might be. One of them is that I didn't have a sense of smell, basically, when I was younger. I had a deviated septum, so I was like a literal snot-nosed kid my whole growing up. Also,
That would have got you bashed.
nah, because see, again, I became all my friends, which are basically I'm still friends with. I became friends with from like prep, so like I never had any issues there. I was a real smart ass, but I never really got. And I was always friends with people, especially like I was a scrawny kid,
Yeah.
but I was a jokester. So I was always like in that position. So I never really had to deal with never physical threats ever, basically. And like the year level I was in was unique. Even that school was still like very tight knit, but my year level was especially like everyone was friends with everyone, basically in the year level. Like there was obviously people, nerds and bullying and shit like that, but nowhere near as much as like everyone was still friends at the end of the day. There was a lot of connection between everyone. So yeah, no, so I don't know. There was apparently my mate told me this. That there was one time like grade 5 or something where like we used to really bully one kid. This really even scrawnier geeky dude, like physically like apparently some beating down and stuff, which I can't remember it at all. But like yeah, so which might be why because I do remember a distinct decision where I was like, I don't like being mean. I'm gonna stop doing that. But I didn't think I was ever that mean. I was just like a joking guy. But maybe I was a bit more cutting in my remarks than I was since then. So, but as you said, kids should be allowed to be cunts. So the issue that I've been dealing with since then, which is still going to today, is that I have huge issues with anger expression. So like in any situation, I'm really bad at expressing any sort of anger.
You can't.
Yeah, like as in it just feels. You know what it
What
is?
about
I'm
road-
hypersensitive to other people feeling bad. So I'm always very, very, very aware always of how the other person's feeling and my responsibility for that.
Even in road rage?
That's the one place where I let free because no one can see me.
You're normal.
Yeah, but no one can see me there, right? So I just absolutely. If you saw me behind the wheel, you'd be horrified.
Oh,
Like
really?
the amount, like it's just the explosion is so extreme.
So you can express anger.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of in a healthy, positive way, like as in to engage with people. And the problem with that is obviously.
Well, you are Greek, so you're allowed some grace there.
You'd think so, but
Like,
I think.
us Greeks, we're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
When I
Exactly.
visited Greek, I'm like, they're screaming at each other. My mum's like, that's how we talk.
Yeah. No, look, and I do all the yelling and stuff, but I think it's different to actual anger. It's almost like fake. It's not real anger sometimes. Like it's more like a performative sort of yelling. Like as in, it's just how you talk.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's actually not angry. It's literally just how you talk. So I've done that a million times. But in terms of actual like fucking anger, I do think there's still, which I've been working on for years to try to get better at, because I think there is still a hold up in me where I'm scared of saying the wrong thing. Because you know, when you're angry, you say fucked up shit, or you might say something that's not correct. Even if you're arguing about something, you get upset, you'll say it, and you're actually not getting your point across well because you're angry. And like
Yeah.
that as well cooks me afterwards whenever I'm like, man, I didn't get my point across because I was angry and I said the wrong thing, or I said it misled or whatever. So then I was like, that annoys me as well, even though that's just normal and you should be kind of cool with that. So even that kind of plays into the thing, like, don't get angry because then you won't be able to explain what's going on as clearly as you could. So
Right. So you get angry and you say things you don't want to say. And then later you regret that and you have to backpedal.
like everyone, yeah, like not
everyone,
any
yeah.
extreme thing, but yeah, just I think I can be hypersensitive to it sometimes. And also, as a guy, if I've been in a situation where like, if you like, you know when girls get, like if you're just around someone and you get angry, not directed to them at all, but then they feel so uncomfortable that you like, oh, I don't feel nice for making someone feel like that, even if it's just not directed at them at all. You just, again, it could be road rage or whatever, but you just get angry and then someone else gets scared, especially, and again, from my experience, caveats. But in my experience with a girl who's like maybe for whatever reason legitimately gets concerned about that stuff, so then you're like, oh, I don't like putting that negative emotion on someone for whatever reason if I don't need to, essentially.
Are you always this animated when you talk? Or do you have downtime where you're like on the couch? What are you like on the couch flicking channels? Are you calm? Do you have a calmness? You seem
very hyper all the time.
Yes. Is that a thing that you've carried since childhood?
Yes. So that's
Has it been looked at? Like, because my mum would drag me by the ear, or like, have your parent like, shut up?
no, because I swing pretty wide, like as in not in terms of going quiet, but like I try not to intrude a lot as well. Like I feel bad. Like a one-on-one thing, I'm actually a lot more animated. But I mean, even if you saw me at comedy rooms, a lot of the time I'm not.
You're like this on stage.
On stage, I am,
But you're like on stage. I'm not like this. I'm more like, I turn it up. Whereas you've already turned it up. Like,
Yeah. I know I'm completely wild. That's why my big problem still to this day is talking too fast on stage.
Yes, you do
which-
talk fast.
Way too fast. But that's also because a lot of the time, if I'm trying, because I'm at open mics, a lot of the time you're seeing it. So I'm trying stuff out. And whenever I'm trying stuff out, that's when I almost start focusing on that. And then once you've got the stuff down, then I'll slow it down and actually like try to put in, when you know where the jokes are properly, then you can spend your time getting there. But at the start, because you're kind of just splurting,
Yeah.
you can't, like, I have a big problem with rolling over punchlines. I roll over my punchlines all the time at the start, which is because and it's a crutch, because if I can get up on stage with a level of energy that people can't help but almost have a good time just watching me be that manic on stage. It's just fun to watch because it's like just very animated and all that stuff.
Do you get into a situation where I think your presence is perfect for large crowds, undisputed, right? What about small crowds, like say 10 or 15 people? Can they be taken aback a bit? Like, because I've often, when I perform, I'm conscious of if there's a small amount of people in the audience, don't go too hard, too loud, too much, because they'll pull back and they'll shut down. It's almost like when the lights are on and you make eye contact with them in a small crowd, they get uncomfortable and they recoil, or they cover their mouth with their hands while they laugh. It's stifled. And you don't want to see that ever as a comedian because they're inhibited in some way. That's why I often say darken the room as much as possible so they can be hidden, and then you can explode on stage. They think that you can't see them. They're hidden. So have you suffered from that where you've come on and gone bang and they've just gone, whoa?
Yeah, like as in, I think a good training ground to get over that stuff, especially because when I first started, a good training ground for that is doing solo shows somewhere like Edinburgh or even in comedy festivals where you're not getting numbers ever that are like
Yeah.
big. So you got to learn to deal with
And you've done
10.
that. You've done
I've done
Edinburgh.
that. Yeah, I've done it heaps of times. So
Edinburgh, oh, well
yeah, I've
done.
done Edinburgh lots. Because when I started, I was like,
That's a tour of duty, man. That's tough.
oh man, it's so. But now, like, it got to the point where because I've got this other bookish comedy show as well, that I started that in Edinburgh as a second show to my solo, and that now does so well that I can actually go to Edinburgh and not lose money, which is wild.
That's a success.
Don't make money, but
That's a success for comics.
yeah, it's
To
such a success, right?
Breaking even is the dream.
Yeah, in Edinburgh, that's ridiculous, right?
I'm
Yeah. So, but because of that, like, I was forced to learn. And again, this is the funny thing, you talk about this stuff. I don't know about you, but so much of the stuff, my life revolves around trying to remember shit that I've learned already and then forget and then have to relearn it and then go back. Like, it's like when you come out of lockdown and you're just all over the place and you slowly get the skills back. But even with something like that, the one I learned, the big ones, because I started before going into comedy, I was doing more acting. So even when I first started comedy, I was doing more, I'd write the bit out in detail, and then I'd get up and I'd just do the monologue, essentially. It would look like a conversation because I'm a natural performer like that, but it was very much not comedy in the sense of what we really is, which is
I can
about-
understand the way you approached it.
yeah,
Coming from acting, it's very logical. Write it out, get up there, perform it.
yeah,
You were an actor playing a comedian, whereas now you've transitioned to, I'm sure, more of a comedian who tries things out, ad libs.
yeah. And to be honest, I've probably gone too far that way now. Like, as in over the last few years, I've probably gone too far into like, because there's a laziness to it as well, which I'll admit, which is where you don't have to come up with the full bit. You come up with half ideas and then you get up on stage and try it out. But it's all about finding that happy medium between those two. I've always found, especially for me, because I do like writing, and that's where I come up with my good stuff. So
Yeah.
it is better if I sit there and actually,
Flesh it out.
yeah, grind a bit, which because I found I could kind of not do that and kind of still come up with some stuff. It's less efficient in some ways, even though
Have you
it's easier.
have you ever created funny stuff on stage ad libbing?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
heaps of
have.
times. Yeah.
Okay, so you experienced that joy as well.
Yeah, but what I've never done is gotten up with, because the ad libbing is always, I can always ad lib, like, it's funny, it's almost mathematical again. It's like one or two sentences I can ad lib and then it's good. But whenever it goes further than that, I end up losing the crowd because, like, I don't know, my energy, I start thinking about it too much or something. So it's like, it's not as playful. So when it's ad libbing, yeah, you can find tags and stuff like that on stage. Or when a moment happens and then you can kind of build and you're like, oh, cool, I can do that in future. And little throwaway lines where I don't even know where it comes from. I'm not thinking. So when it's as purely unthinking, then it can kind of work. But as soon as it goes any further than that, like, I don't know if you do this because I don't do this either, is go up with just an idea, like just nothing, like no, never said it out loud.
That's how I work. That's how I like to work because I say it, it sounds fresh. And because it sounds fresh, I'm therefore invested. And because the crowd is scaring the shit out of me, that triggers my word economy and my less is more attitude. So I start editing without knowing I'm editing. And I tend to maybe 4 times out of 10 will get a punchline. 6 out of 10 it'll be silence, and you create a joke to get out of the fact that no one laughed.
Yeah, that's
And
always the best.
That's the
like,
it's embarrassing, but we're comics, we do it.
it's
you,
like you get the energy.
you
Yeah.
own the smell of the fart, and they laugh, and you just move on somehow.
Yeah.
But you can't do it all the time. When it starts wearing thin, you're dying.
Not in the one set, yeah. No,
Not in the
that's-
one
nah,
set.
Yeah.
You can probably do it maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
I like to acknowledge a death. I think it's important for me. I don't pretend it's not a death.
Oh yeah.
I put my hand up.
No, that's I that was actually one of the learning curves as well early on, and this goes back to that acting monologue sort of business that I was doing, and it all changed one time, and again it was actually in Edinburgh where I would have these shows. It's like 10, 15 people, and I wasn't that good. Like, it was years ago. Some of it's like it wasn't horrible. Some of it was like there were jokes, you know what I mean? But I was still not a comic. I was an actor, and I was like there performing, and I'd have like death for like 10 minutes, just dying. Actually, the worst one I ever had, although in retrospect, funnily enough, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was at the time, because I did realize that depending on the room, you can have a pretty quiet audience and then not having a bad time, which is something you don't like. Obviously, you can always get a laugh in any room as well, where they can be loud, but there are situations where they're not hating it, but if you're not smashing, they're not going to laugh that much. And
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that you're sucking. It just means that you're not doing amazing. But
Sure.
like, so I had one of those rooms where it was like that, and I was still early on, and so I just got like it was fucking 45 minutes of silence. Like, just in terms of them sitting there, just kind of watching whatever.
For
And
45.
man, it was a whole show. And like, my memory again fucks with me on this one because like, even in that show,
that out too.
block that out. I'm just editing. Why do you think I'm so happy? Because I don't remember shit that was ever bad happened. Yes. Don't remember any of the last 5 years. So like, even in that, it's funny because one of my memories of that exact same show was at one point I was doing a bit, and I got to the end of a bit, and it was like an act out thing, which I used to do a lot. I still do quite a bit, and there was 3 like old Scotsmen in the front row, all with their arms crossed, just watching me. And one of them literally, I finished the bit, and again, it shows you how quiet the room was. But he just sat there, he was watching me, and he's like dead serious, and he just leans forwards and goes, "That was very good." And I'm like, fucking hell. So I did.
Yeah.
Like one of those ones, right?
Then why weren't you laughing? I don't get it.
And that's what I've realized as well. And it's with the smaller room, if you don't take control of it, they will go quiet, and it doesn't mean that they're having a bad time, especially if it's 10-15. What
was sorry to cut you off, what was the balance of your show though? Was it predominantly there to be stand-up funny, or was there a message? Like, was it full of points and good ideas and good thinking? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's an idea behind. Sometimes it's just a joke, and other times it's a joke plus a really good idea. So were they taking stuff away from it? That was wow, that was a great perspective.
Well, yeah, and that was actually one of the things which I used to get a lot, and it almost to the point where it annoyed me a bit.
It shouldn't annoy you. Now you should. You've got the chassis in place. Now you've just got to drop in a good engine. Like, just get the laughs up, because that's going to give you longevity, I think. Jokes per minute, unless you're a Jimmy Carr, is fantastic, or a brilliant writer. But I think having a message in the long run will keep you more entertained and interested on stage as a performer.
That's true as well, yeah. And I think that's another side of where, like, you go too far the other way when you go in a certain way, and you're like... Because, the one I always get, which it sounds like I'm bigging myself up, whatever, but this is what people would say to me. They'd be like, oh, well, that was really smart. Like, because they'd always leave, and they'd be like, that was really smart. And I was like, I don't want to be funny. It's like... Yeah. They're like, that was really interesting. Like, that was really smart. Like, I'd always be, like, intellectualizing it.
Well, you got one, It could have been worse. You don't want to get... That was fucking dumb,
Like, and shit, yeah.
But there's everything, isn't there? That was dumb but funny.
Yeah, and
that
that's
was
better.
Smart and funny.
Yeah.
That was smart, or that was just funny. Like, it's weird where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, you just want funny, and then you'd be like, and that was like... Because then, you do bits where you're like, that's a fucking good point.
I don't think... I can't speak for you, obviously, but I think you want smart and funny, don't you? Because I've seen you on stage many times. It's clever stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but it's clever.
Well, yeah, like I try to be...
Yeah, try.
I try to.
Well, we all try.
One or the other. Yeah, honestly, if I was going to be like what I want would be, yes, the smart, like, as in just clever, like more than just nothing, you know what I mean? Like, as in for me, just to not be boring in terms of what you're doing out there, but also with an element of silliness, which I always forget, and it's me knowing what I am. I am silly in terms of my persona on stage whilst being clever is me... dopey, like as in I'm rolling around that stage, I'm all over the place. There's an element of playfulness to me, which I think I want to make sure I keep, which I sometimes don't as well.
Yeah. Do you think that in Melbourne, Australia, we're always going to be behind the 8 ball of comedians in London and America, seeing as they're exposed to decent gigs every single night, sometimes decent gigs 2, 3 times a night? Like in London, you could gig up to 6 times a night on a Friday in very good crowds.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like that's clearly, it's a big flaw of here. Like as in but we got a great scene, and we got some really internationally respected. That's what's interesting. We actually have some. It feels like we punch well above our weight considering the like areas that we gig in. Like as in, like I mean, don't get me wrong, we're coming out of a pandemic right now, but there's at its peak you might get 3 or 4 in a night, maybe, but those aren't killer rooms. Like that's you going to a bunch of different rooms where you might have like just other comics there and stuff.
We have good comics here because we live in a city that's full of cunts and the audience are hard. I don't know what's wrong with the audience in Melbourne, but they're very hard to please.
Yeah.
Whether it's the weather or their life or the fact that they're paying too much for a house, I don't fucking know. But they can be assholes. They're really tough to impress. I'll give you an example. The flip side of the coin, Gold Coast. Anything you said, George, was fucking gold. Like anything. Like my B material. I was throwing in bronze stuff that are from years ago that I could never get to work. It was They're just loving it
Yeah.
because they're tourists and they're soaking it up. It's the same with Central London. Touristy. There's a comedy club called Top Secret Comedy that was only filtering tourists from Covent Garden, and they were just loving everything because they were tourists. As soon as you go out a bit, North London, where it's Londoners, it's tough.
Yeah. I know, because I've got some experience and I know. Yeah, and I think it's like also.
Oh yeah, you've done the circuit in London.
A little bit. Like, because I'd go to Edinburgh, I'd actually go there and.
You'd go off.
Yeah, go off and just check it out a bit, but
Of
never
course.
like in detail.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. And man, it's like.
It's yeah.
Yeah. London is.
Very good. I just missed my, I'm a wog. I miss my family too much. I had to come back.
Yeah, look, man, a part of me still thinks I should have gone, and I still kind of think that.
Well, you still can.
Yeah, no.
You're still young.
I'm too old, man. I'm sober. I was like,
How old are
I
you
was
now?
actually
36?
35. But
You know,
35. Get it right.
have you got a woman?
Well.
Okay, yeah. Well, you're not going nowhere. You're fucked. She's already talking to your mum. Got to get married. Got to get a house.
No. Look, it's a healthy, supportive sort of. It's a very early days still, so obviously that's all
really?
jumping down.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, it was a
Enjoy the honeymoon phase while it lasts, because then once it's over, it's fucked.
Nah, man, I'm sure it
Just
lasts.
shit again.
I don't know, man. I think it might last forever. I'm a pretty super guy.
Women are like chewing gum, and men are like chewing gum. Relationships in general are like chewing gum. The
Okay.
flavor's great in the beginning, and then you go through the motions.
Wow, that's a. How long's it been since you were in a relationship, Johnny?
Years, and I'm never going back.
Never going back. Okay.
Nah,
Like,
man.
what happened to you in that relationship?
Oh, you don't want to know.
What?
Darkness,
Have you
my
blocked
friend.
some memories out as well, maybe?
Mate, I've deleted chunks of files. That was the most horrific experience. I didn't know demons walk the earth, but yeah, they do.
They do. And they're in female form.
This one was.
Yeah, look, they can break. Is this in England or here?
Here and England as well. Like we came over.
Was she a wog?
I kind of. Does this count? She's Irish, but like staunch Irish blood.
You
like
can't
don't.
trust these Irish
You know what I mean? Like
whatever you said, then I was going to say.
they're hot.
Yeah.
As in they fly off the handle.
Yeah. The Irish, they're great people. I love the Irish.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I love the Scottish. They're
Yeah.
fucking great people.
They've got the
The Poms different.
Yeah.
No, Poms are English, right? Yeah. They're different.
The
Well, I've got some mates that tune in every now and then.
All right,
And
okay.
they're fucking good people.
Yeah.
Even the ones that barrack for Millwall who are psychotic, they're still. But yeah.
It's still fun to be out on a Saturday. Yeah.
Yes.
Millwall won or lost, you're in for a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still need those knuckle busters.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Just spare, yeah. No, but so in terms of that though, I don't know. Like, as in, the funny thing is, just before the pandemic hit, back in the heady days of early 2020, because I'd done the cycle of the shows overseas, and I was kind of getting a rhythm with that, especially Edinburgh, because
Were you going every year
for like 4 years.
in a row?
Yeah, Edinburgh.
Man, fucking congrats. That's a great effort, man.
Man, it's honestly
well done.
As you might have heard, but I don't know. It's the most fun thing
Yeah.
in the world, and I'm including all industries.
Oh,
I haven't done all industries, but I am telling you, there is nothing more fun for a comedian, and I can't imagine anything like that exists for anyone else to
No.
that degree as Edinburgh is. And like, I don't. People talk, it's hell.
It's hell, but it's a good hell. Any comedians that watch this that are young comics, when I say young, not age, as in haven't been doing it for long, see if you can hook up with about 4 friends and book an apartment way in advance, like almost a year out,
Yeah.
and go over with 4 friends, fly out together, hang out together, perform together, support each other, and you'll have look after each other, and you'll have such a great time.
That's what I mean. It's hell if you're on your own. Like, I was an idiot the first time. I didn't know anyone, and I didn't do that. So then it was rough. But if you go with like some mates, share the flat, it's not even hell. It's just fun. It is literally just fun. Especially like if you talk to people who've done it, get some tips on what to do. Obviously, you won't get a very good room the first year, so you are going to have to eat shit and flyer a lot and all that stuff. But if you make the right connections, you can get hooked up for next time. Or what a lot of them do is they don't do a show, which is, again, the much smarter move. You just go there just to gig, and you don't worry about your own show. And that way you get to feel the lie of the land,
Yeah.
and you just have fun.
And also, I know this sounds gay, and yes, I know I'm politically incorrect, but write down
It's rare I've heard someone say that in a
before
public
you
space.
before you go, write down what you want to achieve from Edinburgh. I think so, because
That is gay.
what that does, seriously, what that does is it stops you from smashing piss every fucking night, because you will fall into that trap in Edinburgh. And if you start smashing piss every night in Edinburgh, you're not learning jack shit from your set, and you're not developing as a comic. So write down what you want to get at it, because the drugs are cheap, the drugs are everywhere, the drugs are great, and the beer flows. It's never ending. There's shows 24 hours. So write down, I can get smashed once a week. I'll do drugs at the end of the festival. I really just want to hone my craft and get this hour right. I think so, and then go. Because you're going to get caught in this fucking, what is it, the tornado or something, whatever, the Royal
whirlpool, I don't
Mile.
know. Yeah, yeah. Look, I think I would say it's very ambitious to, if you manage to do that, and I respect the people who do.
Well, look,
But if you go there with like, especially if you're just gigging, then you probably do have the flexibility to indulge in that. But I would definitely say, like, I got pissed a bit the first few times, but then I've very much now, just doing festivals in general, learned you don't drink as much as you used to. But at the same time, it's really fun, that element. And there is a lot of like networking, like fun things where you get to meet people you wouldn't have ever met and stuff like that. Like I still remember bloody 4 or 5 years ago, James Acaster hanging out with him in one of the thingies there. And I was, just because I was fangirling hard, and my roommate, who she didn't know who she was, she's like, what? And she just went over and started talking to him. And then I was like, oh, cool. Just hanging out.
Was he big then?
Yeah.
It was?
Like big-ish. Nowhere near now, but but that was just one. But there's a million, and you get like, you know, there's all the Edinburgh stalwarts, like the acts that are there every year, and you will, if you just sit there and you make friends with people, and if you get pissed a bit, because that's all part of it, you end up just making a whole bunch of friends, and you get to see all types of people. So it's really fun in that sense. And like I've made some friends now from that are like really good mates, and that's actually what I was going to say. Like so because of that cycle I was doing, at the start of 2020, I was getting 2 opportunities that I was looking at. I was like, oh, fuck, this could be something. Because the Bookish Comedy Show, that's like it's like a moneymaker in a sense. Like it's a really good in to places now, because I've figured out the marketing for it. I've figured out what it is. It's really fun. And it's a good way to, like, as an intro into thing, you're like, oh, I've got this product that exists that is good. I've got this track record. Here's the marketing stuff for it. So you can like kind of get a decent room off the bat with places you might not have gotten to otherwise, which is really great. And so I was like looking at that, and there's one Brighton Fringe, which is earlier in the year.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
And I've heard, like, I had a few people being like, man, you should take Bookish Comedy there. It would do really well.
Yeah.
There's a crowd that would love it.
Brighton Fringe is, small time.
Yeah.
Edinburgh. It's a fantastic way to run in.
Yeah. So like, hearing that, I was like, okay, that's in like May or something. So I was like, well, I could maybe next year line up and do that, and then stick around London and England for 2 months, and really like give it a red hot go, you know, in terms of gigging around everywhere, and then going to Edinburgh. And then I had another friend from America who I'd met on one of these things, and he was like talking about touring and stuff in the States, and he's like, we hit it off. He's like, man, come down. We can do like, we'll do a little mini tour, like 3 weeks, whatever, which is apparently a thing that you can just do in America. There's always opportunities where you can do that stuff.
Dead set. Can I probe with an agent? An agent hooks you up to those gigs, because you can't do it alone.
No, you can. No, I'm not saying I'll do it. I'm saying the American guy, he
can plug you in,
and he's been doing it for 20 years as well.
Oh,
so he knows.
Fantastic.
He knows everyone. So like, but he was talking about that. So all these little things, which are like, were nothing potentially. They could be nothing, I'll admit. But like,
when he means a gig, does he mean like a tour across several states, or one state, or?
I didn't actually clarify. Like, I think a lot of it would be like doing unis, and it would all be like where he's the headliner, and he gets at different comedy rooms like every night for like 3 weeks, and then you do tour across. I don't know whether across state lines. I'm assuming it would, but just different cities every night, and just doing that.
That'd be
like
great.
On a small scale sort of things.
College gigs.
College gigs, yeah.
Hey, what uni is this? What the fuck is a uni? What's this guy talking about?
Could finally prove whether the Australian accent is actually helpful.
Yes.
Not that it matters to me anymore. I have got a missus, and I don't care about that stuff anymore. It's lame. Girls are lame. So that's what I always say.
Is the relationship like good so far, like hot and heavy, like good, or?
I don't want to go into too much detail. She might listen to this.
She won't listen. Trust me.
No, it's great. It's just really, really nice. Really,
good,
really nice. Really early days, so it's like just really fun. Being
good.
Like, oh wow, I feel stuff I didn't know. It's been a while. For me, it's been 8 years before that. So I was like, it's been a while since.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
8 years.
Okay, take it easy.
Wow.
I've spoken.
Where
to
have you?
girls since then.
What's happened to you? Like, have you? Now, surely, many, because you're a good-looking guy. So many came to the door, knocked. What did you do? Not interested.
No, I actually do think genuinely, especially
there would have been a reason. Was it on your comedy to focus solely on what you were doing artistically?
Well, I wish I could say that it was that kind of single-minded focus, but I would say it's a combination of factors, including I was to pay for going overseas those first few years. I was living at home, with my parents.
Yeah.
Which makes things a lot harder immediately in terms of getting someone around, doing all that kind of dating stuff, right?
Okay.
So straight away, there was this big block in the way of any interaction where, like, if you're 29 or 30, that's just not what people do.
But you're Greek, so it's all right.
And then, like, a part of it probably was an internal thing. Where I'm like, I just don't want
Too embarrassed.
I don't want to do it. Yeah. And then on top of that, because of the festivals that I would do, because I'd also go and do the Australian ones, I was trying to do that as much as possible. So really, I was in Melbourne, like, for a length of time, probably gone like 3 or 4 months at the max thing, like, as in, or like something, and always there was another one coming up. So there was this.
Is the reason why you're single for 8 years multifaceted? That's one reason. Another reason was you're picky. Are you picky?
It feels like you really want me to be picky.
I just reckon you're a picky guy. I smell picky.
What is so picky?
I don't know. I don't know.
What do you mean picky?
I smell picky.
I'm not picky. I'm not. I'm desperate, if anything. Just stinking of desperation.
Are you a Casanova? Were you putting chicks away for 8 years, just having fun? Because you've got that look. Come on, look at that face. That's Casanova. Like, you could pull a lot of chicks. If my mother saw a photo of you, she would melt. You are so dead on with your joke about, well, I won't say it here, but that joke is so fucking funny and spot on.
Oh, about the moustache thing.
Oh my God. You'd have Greek yayas throwing their undies at you. You'd be you are the poster boy. I saw a photo of my granddad, for fuck's sake, and I looked at it and I go, oh my God, it's George Dimarelos. Where the fuck did George get a DeLorean from? Like, George, can I borrow your DeLorean?
Sure you can, grandson. It's all right. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, so look, I have a weird thing.
I just think you're driven as well with stand-up, and I think artistically you were like, I've got to focus on Edinburgh. I've gone 4 years in a row. Because the only reason I say that is I'm very similar as well. Behind you, there's fucking whiteboards, and, I'm very, I like my single life as well because I can focus clearly on my work.
Well, see, here's the thing, right? And as much as I would love to claim that, there probably is an element of that. I would like to give myself some credit. But at the same time, the other thing is I'm just very, very good at being single, which is part of what this whole learning curve has been in the last 2 months with this new girlfriend. Because I've never called her girlfriend before. That's weird. Miss I. And I better do that before you release this episode, just so she doesn't hear it here first. She'll be like, "What girlfriend? Nah, bro, I'm out of here." Just broken hearted.
So you can do single good.
I can do single so good to the point where, like, I didn't even understand, like, the need. So it wasn't like I was out slaying, fucking
So you're a fiercely independent guy.
Fiercely. Like,
so you're like
antisocial borderline.
So you're yeah, right. So you're like Tom Hanks in Castaway when he fucking nailed the island when he was killing it, like crushing coconuts, catching fish.
That's me every day. I am on a day alone, I'm flat out all day. There's no time for me to do it.
So you're a gun.
That's how much shit I've got to do. All of it not helpful, but just flat out.
So isolation. So lockdown doesn't faze you.
Not at all. It didn't hit me, like, especially the first lockdown. The big one last year. There was about a 6-week period where I was basically on my own the whole time, and there wasn't a second where I was like, oh,
fascinating.
Did not care at
I developed anxiety. I didn't know it, but I couldn't. I'd fall asleep and wake myself up every 20 minutes, and I Googled it, and it's like, you got anxiety, dude. Just chill.
Well, here's the thing, right? Probably there was some of that going on, but again, my brain chopping out bits.
You got ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, so
you've got this fucking program where you delete all the hush of shit.
Exactly. It's gone every night. I wake up, I'm like, spend the whole night, but I just like,
people take meds for that.
Yeah, look, it's
that's great.
Just smile all the time. Your brain.
Have you seriously been able to just block shit out as a child and just move on ahead? It's a fucking great gift.
I don't think if it is the truth, then it's probably quite worrying, to be honest. If anything, don't do it. I'm not like, and deleted. Okay, where's the neuralizer on myself? Okay, bro. Happy childhood. It's all good.
Would be fun.
So I've got very good at, like, just because I like reading, which is the longest and most antisocial activity you can have in terms of just on your own doing that. And then I'm always love trying activities, things like that. So I can be very busy on my own.
What is it about reading that you like? Is it the meditative state it puts you in, or the fact that you can learn so much about everything and anything as opposed to a visual stimuli?
So I think again, this might tie into the childhood thing. Another reason why I don't remember my childhood as much. So I was a huge geek growing up. Like I was a massive, massive sci-fi and fantasy nerd when I was younger.
Same here.
Yeah, and I think one of the things for me was the escapism element. So I'm like really good at ripping escapism to the point where it's like my one skill is like I could sit, and if I like a fantasy book, like I could sit there and read it for like 8 hours. Like actually, I've done that before. No, like as in, and
Can you read? Would you read for 8 hours in a stretch?
yeah. Like as in, if I get hooked into a fantasy book,
Wow.
because I'm just like, it's not reading, it's not hard. Like the
That's
reading part isn't hard for
fantastic.
me, so I just get sucked in, and I can just keep going, keep going. You know what I mean? No, that hasn't happened. As like the last time was actually probably like 2 years ago, and I think it was like just the right amount of hungover to be not wanting to do anything else, and just sat there and just read for.
And you told me before we recorded you're going to undertake a professional writing course.
Yeah.
Is that to would you like to write a novel one day? Because I consider people who write novels heroes. Because for me, stand up, I have 30 seconds to get a laugh. Otherwise, I'm incorrect, wrong, end program, start again. A novelist, they can just keep going and going and going. And I'm like, aren't you lost? How? It's amazing.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm not sure. I kind of just want to develop the muscle in general, because it's a good skill to have. I think to be able to
Absolutely.
write and be able to express yourself cleanly with language is, especially with writing. I feel like because even with speaking, there are non-verbal ways you can like kind of get away and hack your way through. But it's like there's nothing like trying to put your thoughts onto a page to realize how empty they are, or to eat yourself up and want to neck yourself. Like it's just
Yeah.
you can just go down and you're like, oh fuck, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like about any
Yes.
topic. As soon as you try to actually write a coherent, structured argument,
Mm.
which you can kind of trick with speech and kind of jump around easily.
Yep.
So that element for me is huge. Like just trying to get your thoughts better, but also obviously it's a way to express yourself and all that stuff. So basically, my logic for it again was kind of force the issue because still weren't sure at that point a few months ago when I decided to do this, what was happening next year. So I was like, you know what, I could delay again or be like, oh, maybe it'll be fine, but it's like just do it, and even if like everything opens up, it's still good, and it'll force me because like I was saying to you before we started, I need the external pressure. If someone's like every week you got to do this, I'll do it, but as soon as it's like on my own, I'm really bad at self-motivation without like a deadline in place. So that's the other reason for it as well, literally just to make me write more in general, which is another
Yeah.
reason for it.
How are you with? I'll answer first, just so you don't think I'm just putting you in the deep end.
Okay.
How are you with self-belief? Me, it wavers. Some days I have self-belief, other days I don't. I struggle a lot with it. To produce stuff, to put it online, I'm scared to. My stand-up and all that sort of stuff. Doing a piece of new material, if I'm not in a good frame of mind, I'll back out and I'll just do some rope. Yeah. So how are you with it? Because I always ask comics, what do you like with self-belief? Because for me, it's fucking pendulum.
Completely. Exactly the same. Like hard. It depends. Like, yeah. I mean, I would say probably less in general than more.
And how do you think we can iron it out or bring it up to a certain level that's consistently positive? It doesn't have to be amazing, but just how can we level it out or boost our self-belief?
Well, like I mean, and it shouldn't ever be based on external circumstances, right? Your self belief. It should be something which is kind of like,
But one
without
mirrors
going
the-
into denial.
One
like,
mirrors the other. Like you can't have self-belief unless you've done something on the
Well, so
outside
here's the-
world, like
so-
make someone laugh.
Well, and here's the thing, right? So I would look at you and be like, your self belief. So you're in a different position to me. If I was in your position in some ways, I'd have a lot more self belief. I feel like because for you have a very good track record of being very tight. You do headlining. People are constantly telling you how great you are.
Well,
You
so-
get a lot of laughs and all that. So you know that you're great as a comedian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as in you've got a lot of that external stuff telling you
Yeah.
that you're at least very good. You know what I mean? Like that's at least that.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of stuff to show you that.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, it should be easier for you in some ways to at least be like, well, that's my base. And now, yes, I can lack self-belief that maybe I can't be the next George Carlin. Don't know why I picked him. But like, you've got the base. You're like, I am this fucking good though.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've got the external stuff telling you that.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't need it. It should be all about self-belief, Buddhist, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Whatever.
but we do have it.
Yeah. So that's why when you say that, I find that interesting. Because like when you
Mm.
say self-belief, I feel it's a different category to maybe when I say self-belief. Because I just don't have that kind of, like, let's say, credit from external, which undeserved. Like, I feel like I do need to put more work into certain things to get there.
Mm.
So I do think that there's space there. But for you, it's funny you're saying that because you know that you're good.
Yeah, but I've lacked the courage to do Edinburgh or, do that or publish something for an hour on YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where my demons are. So,
But that's like almost, you could break that down further and be like, well, do you want to do 15 minutes first? Do you want to do 30 minutes first? Like, you've got to, because you could,
well,
for
that's
you,
what
look
I'm,
at the base you've got, which is good.
that's
Like,
what
you
I'm working on now. Like with like a sort of like a life coach or like a mentor who's going, all right, well, start posting 5s, then start posting 10s and work your way up, and don't look at the comments.
Yeah.
Because it can be mostly derisive.
Yeah, of course. And like, nothing kills you the first few times when you get that, and you're like, I'm the worst.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because on stage you can get abuse and it's okay. You brush it off.
On stage, it's great. On stage, because you can do it there. You can work with it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the comments afterwards, because that's in the cold. Firstly, you don't have the adrenaline pumping through you.
Yeah.
You're not on stage performing. You're just sitting at home on your laptop, and it says, this guy's fucking shit. And you're like,
What happens to you when you're dying on stage? I start losing words. Are you still able to string sentences together?
Yeah, look.
I become nonsensical. Like, I leave chunks out to get to the...
Yeah, like,
I'm crossing my arms because I'm fucking psychologically fearful of death.
Nah, it's, I don't know if that's true, that is anyway. But I think my habit is actually kind of opposite to that in some ways. What I can do is go into like firstly talk fast, but also just shut down. So like, as in almost like the walls go down behind my eyes, and I just go into like, it's not disassociating, but it's essentially, I'm just going to do the script. And
it is disassociating.
Yeah. So it's
because
like,
as a performer, you need to be constantly taking the pulse of the crowd.
Yeah.
So when you build that, you're no longer there.
Yeah, and
you're an actor now.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I can have a habit of falling into that. So just talk faster, which is obviously what a lot of people do who are amateurs, which I am as well. Like, when it comes to that, I do talk too fast. But also then, just go into script mode and then kind of power through. So one of the things I learned, again, at a show is great for that, and it took me a lot to learn it, but like, basically, if it's not going well, like you said, you got to acknowledge it. And you don't have to acknowledge it. You can even acknowledge it in a way where it's like, ideally, you go into crowd work of some kind. If you can just pull something from the crowd, just to make them know that you're there with them, you know how it's going, you've got a gauge of the room. I feel like that kind of thing's easier with 10, 15 people. If you're dying in the ass with 10, 15 people, you can always save it, is my view. Because with 10, 15 people, you can look each of them in the eyes as you acknowledge stuff, like, so they can really feel you and you can feel them. That can really break tension.
Yes.
But with a bigger crowd, when it's silent in a big crowd, you can't do that. You're fucked unless you got like some serious skills.
Did you know that when Norm McDonald used to fucking die horrifically, he used to punish himself by standing at the door and handshaking every single person as they left and thanking him for coming? Oh my God, what are you doing, man? That is self-harm to the extreme. But I think that was his way. And when he crushed and killed, he'd slip out the door. That was his way of, I don't know, I guess, learning to let a death wash over you.
Yeah.
And deal with it to make you more rigid, I guess.
And I think that's also like that stay humble sort of thing, like, as in the good and the bad, don't treat them like the good and the bad, because they're not like, you can't just ignore the bad ones unless you ignore the good ones too. You're just like, it's all nothing.
Yeah. Like,
that's the best way to kind of do it. You're like, this has no bearing. Again, it's because of self-belief. Neither of these have a bearing on my self-belief, because I'm just doing my thing. Like, that's the dream, right?
Yes. I try and hover above. I try and remove myself. When I lack self-belief in stand-up, I try and remove myself from the present moment and look at it as a marathon, not a sprint. It's like, don't focus on what you're like at this gig. Just remember that you're heading towards being a stand-up in 15 years' time, and you're going to be a lot different, a lot better in 15 years' time. That's what I do, bigger picture.
I think that helps a lot.
It's helped me heaps to relax.
Yeah.
Because I get tense. And do you celebrate a win on stage, like a really good gig? And do you reward yourself with a death? Like Jerry Seinfeld said, when you die, treat yourself. So when I die, I've spoken about this before. I eat a can of Milo in a sitting. Like, I just go hard. It's like, I just
milk,
a little bit of milk just for texture to make it a paste. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's vicious. That's what I do to reward myself, because I love it so much.
Death.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't like a death, but that's what I do to reward myself. So at least I have something to look forward to. So, like, when I exit the stage, I'm like, well, at least I can go to Coles and pick up a can of Milo and have my thing, which I love.
All right, and you don't have any other time.
I don't do it any other time. I don't keep Milo in the house.
Nice.
I'm not allowed. It's just
To
bad.
yourself.
Yeah, it wrecks my guts. Yeah,
So it's adding more suffering if you get some perspective.
yeah. So,
Like-
do you have anything when you die? Sarah Millican reckons when she dies, she's a UK comic. She'll mourn the death up until 11 a.m. the next day, and then that's it. It's focus for the next gig and pick herself up.
Yeah, I think like if I was going to say anything, I would say to go again as quick as possible.
Yeah,
that's the one which I
that's a
do
good
have.
idea.
Always go again.
Yeah,
because
even
I've
if you
learnt
can that night.
Yeah, if you can at night, that's like always. And again, it's Melbourne. It's harder when it's less gigs,
Yeah.
but when there's more gigs, like other times a year, you can do it. But especially again, festivals and stuff, different thing. If you can go again that night. That's one thing I do strongly believe, even though sometimes I might not want to. It's like you got to get that. You got to fuck that off as quick as possible. You got to put that in the back, like a rearview mirror. I find.
Good idea.
And the other one is if you record it, it's always interesting going back and listening to a recording of a death because so much of the time it's death, but there might be bits in it where you're like, oh, that actually was
You
not.
can learn.
Yeah, and like you can actually like, there might even be a chuckle somewhere where you're like, oh, that was actually okay, and then you're like, oh, maybe I was overreacting to it. I always find listening to your recordings is the best. Like neutralizer again, because you have like when you're like, I fucking killed that,
Yeah.
and then you listen back and you're like, oh, it was good.
Yeah.
But it was like
Perspective.
yeah, it gives you both sides. You're like, okay, there was actually a gap there, and like, oh, that laugh there wasn't as big and stuff. And then sometimes you die in the ass. You go listen back, and you're like, okay, it's still not great.
Yeah.
But okay, maybe I'm beating myself up. There was and especially because you can do the post-mortem, which is the best.
Yeah.
Is if you can be like, oh, okay, I clearly fucked this up. I stumbled over that word. That's why they didn't get it. It doesn't help the feelings, but it does help. You know, most things start in the brain intellectually, and then hopefully you can filter it down into your emotions.
Yes. I often say to myself, just before I press play to hear back a recording, I always say to myself, only I'm reliving this. The audience isn't. So it's okay. Because I have this like horrible like Alfred Hitchcock kind of nightmare that when I press play, it audio blasts into every audience member's ears right there and then. So we have to relive it all together. And I'm like, this is just me. It's a private space. Only these walls will soak in this horror. Let's try and learn something. And that's where I picked up, wow, I say a lot when I die. I stutter. My words don't make sense. I miss out words and I wasn't aware. So when I listened back, I realized, man, I'm nonsensical. So that's just increasing my death. So now I'm like, stop, rest, take a deep breath and acknowledge the death and maybe try and recommence.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what's your opinion of performing at a gig to just comics? Do you think it's a futile?
I'm torn.
Would you? I'm.
Like, as in, because obviously there's the cult of gigging. Which,
Sorry.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
No, go on.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, do you? Yeah, I want to hear your answer. Then I'll back it up.
Okay. So there's the cult of gigging which exists, and obviously it's popularized, especially I think UK does it, but I think America especially is all about how many gigs did you do? You should be doing 17,000 gigs a night.
Yeah.
And that there's truth in it as well. Like that's the thing. And
yeah, but not 17,000 shit gigs.
and that's the other side, because I'm like, how much? Because you do see it sometimes even here. You see comics who like they're just constantly doing rooms where there's no one else, and like that is the fucking downside of Melbourne. Like especially right now, but in general, like you are going to get gigs where there's not many people at all, and you do wonder how much are you getting from it. And like especially the one that confuses me the most whenever I see that is when it's just comics and a comic will get up and do stuff that they've done a million times before for the full set, and you're like,
that's strange.
What purpose was that? Like I don't actually, I get confused.
Unless you're doing a big gig on the weekend in front of a paid gig and you want to hear it to memorize it, especially now post lockdown.
Yeah.
Like I performed in front of pretty much comics only, but I just had to just say it because I was doing the lounge a couple of nights later, and I just wanted to get the muscle memory back, and no one was laughing, and I realized the stupidity. I'm like, I'm just doing jokes that comics have heard before, and of course they're not laughing, but I'm just saying it to get that rhythm. So I was like, maybe I should have just done ad-libbing or just spoken about something different, because they're just comics. So they've heard my shit before. They want to laugh. They do. So just give them something completely different.
No, see, I reckon in that I would
I
argue
don't know.
because you're almost like, because you know, again, this is a very specific circumstance you're talking about. You're talking about material you know works. that you haven't done, you're trying to just bed down again because it's been a while.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably maybe not that bad to do, and especially to do in a room where you don't get treated that nicely because like you firstly you're not going to go overconfident.
Mm.
The biggest curse in the world is whenever you think you're going to be the best and you walk out there and you just die in the ass and you're not ready for it. So there's nothing like a realistic
Yeah.
setting of expectations.
My favorite gigs are when I'm dry reaching before I go on because I'm like, good. I have no belief. I'll do okay.
Yeah,
Because I'm nervous as fuck.
Which
The MC's going, are you right? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I'm great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, it's one of those weird things that goes the opposite of the self-belief thing. Because obviously, yeah, nothing like going out there and not giving a fuck. But also, there's that too confident where it's like just dumb confidence, where you actually do give a fuck, but you think you're confident because you don't, and that's not actually confidence. That's the
so
other one.
true. Every time I'm confident, I suck. There's a fucking pattern to it.
Yeah, but I think it's more like there's the not giving a fuck where you actually don't give a fuck. But then there's the confidence, which is like I'm the best, and then you're like, oh no, I'm not, and actually you're not confident. You're not. Yeah, it's an expression of an insecurity still. You know what I mean? Like
it's not synchronized with your spirit. What's happening inside your spirit?
Yeah. That's what I mean. So it doesn't get a
Yeah.
laugh. You're just confident because you had an easy gig, and then you go up and you don't get a laugh straight away, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so fucking shit. What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
That's not real confidence. You know what I mean? Versus like when you don't give a fuck at all, and you go out there and you just chill, and then sometimes you die with that as well. Don't get
Yes.
me wrong, plenty. But the one I found with that as well is, and usually it helps when you've done like 50 gigs in a row. When you get to the point where you just don't give a shit, and it's great. It's so freeing, and you do. And one of the realizations I had there, I remember when it would happen to me, because it's always like once the flow happens, it doesn't mean you're magically going to be good. It doesn't mean you're going to fix it. It does mean that you're probably going to save yourself a lot better than you would otherwise. And on top of that, it does mean that you just don't give a fuck. You just don't. So you're up there and you're dying in the eyes and you're like, whatever. And you just go through your stuff still and you play around with the audience. You might stop a joke halfway through and just do whatever. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to all of a sudden you're the greatest comic ever. But it does mean that I think mathematically the probability of success is going to be higher than if you're stressing and falling apart. And also just emotionally, you're going to be fine because you're just like, if you actually don't care, you're like, yeah, whatever.
So what would you do in a situation where you go to an open mic gig, it's full of comics? What do you do when you get up on stage? Do you do your material or you just go, nah, I'll just fuck around. I'll do completely new stuff?
Usually I'll like look at stuff that I've got, which is much newer.
Yeah.
If it's just comics, because if I got the time before, like as soon as I'm like, it's a workshop, I'll usually be like, okay, yeah, let's try. Although, like, again, with open mics, a lot of time I'm going there anyway with fairly new material, to be honest. Like, again, a problem of mine is I need to try bedding down a bit more because I kind of got out of the flow of doing that. But yeah, usually I'll be, if it's just a comic, if it's a workshop, then treat it like a workshop, you know? It doesn't have to lose value. You can be like, okay, I'll try fucking
Yeah,
around
you can
this.
still get something out of it.
Yeah.
Mm.
But to your other point, though, the point of gigging constantly, like, I mean, every great comic gigs constantly, right? Of all like the US ones, but even the ones UK. But I mean, how many of them were doing, 2 3 other comics at 11:30 p.m. every night?
Yeah, you're
Like,
looking at them now when they're in cruise control at 30,000 feet doing great gigs, but to get to that level, they had to do shit gigs. Maybe a couple of gigs a week only. I mean, I know me for a fact, I would rather do 2 gigs a week quality rather than 13 quantity.
Yeah, I think
You'll learn a lot more.
yeah, I actually I'm obsessed. You kind of mentioned it before, like your minimalism. And one way I kind of express that in my own life, hard, is my obsession deep down with minimum effective dose. Like, how little do I need to do of this to be able to for it to be useful? You know, what's the bare minimum I can do in anything for it to be like effective? Essentially, it's like one example is like I do sprints when I run because I've slowly figured out over time, which is very obvious anyway. But if you want minimum effective dose of exercise, it's 100% sprints because you don't have to do anything to get ready. You just walk outside. So it's the easiest to prepare for, and then you just go 100 meters sprint. You can be done in like 10, 15 minutes and you're fucked and it's good for you.
How do you do it? Do you sprint for 100 meters, walk for 20 seconds, sprint for 100 meters, walk for 20 seconds?
So where I am, right now I live next to a park, so it's a lot easier for me because I just go to I just go to the park and I can do it there. Before that I was not living near a park, so I just do it on the street. But what I'll do is usually I'll sprint.
Your neighbors will think this guy's jacked. He's cooked. He's burnt his Barbie. And now he's sprinting down the street, and now he's back home again.
Yeah, and he's back again. And
it's weird.
Yeah. No, because I you do the sprint. So what I'll do is I'll go 150 meters, whatever, and then I'll usually jog back, and then I'll do it again, and I'll jog back, and I'll do that about 4 or 5 times, and then I'll
fucking kill you.
And then I walk for 1, and then I'll do another 2, like run, jog, sprint, and then I'll walk, and then I'll do 1 more, and that's like 8. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I've done a good run of like jog sprints, and then I've had a break, so my body's actually chilled, and I've forced it again. So like, I think that's probably enough to. None of this is scientific, but it feels like you're pretty wrecked. You know what I mean?
Well, isn't it scientific? Because they say you need to elevate your heart rate. So it is scientific.
Oh, no, I just meant in terms of my system of whatever. But yeah, in terms of like high intensity interval training.
Anything that raises your heart rate. I mean, even climbing a tree and staring at the girl in the window. If that raises, 20 minutes a day, that's
okay.
That's a joke.
Is it a big tree?
It's a fucking joke. Don't hashtag me.
I left you out in the lurch there.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm not touching that. With this mo,
wrong.
I'm not going near that shit.
Yeah.
It's a big one that I definitely am overly sensitive to that sometimes, I feel like, because a part of it is being Melbourne, with Melbourne audiences.
Yeah.
And also, I think being a wog, like, and this is going to sound maybe paranoid, but I feel like being a wog, you do get certain things from audiences that maybe white comics, if you want to put it that way, don't get. Like, they got their own sleaziness, don't get me wrong. But there's a certain type of thing with...
If you performed with a white silky shirt, I'd be like, this guy's a fucking Casanova. Like, look at him. He's probably working on my bird right now as I'm watching this show. He's probably talking to her. He's telling jokes to everyone, but he's picking her up at the same time.
Look,
one comic does that. I can't name him. But while he's on stage, if there's a cute girl in the front row, every time he drops a punchline, he'll wink at her. And he reckons he's pulled.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm like, how can you have the time to, like, I'm just trying not to die, trying to do well, let alone pick up.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Fuck.
Yeah. Good on it. Well, why not? You know, each their own.
Each their
They're
own.
all consenting adults, so it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the... Sorry. What are we talking about?
I don't know. We've been speaking for an hour. We
shit.
got to wrap up.
Oh, nah.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to do all my evolutionary stuff, defending it.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck. I'm so excited.
Yeah, no,
You
let's
ruined
talk
everything.
about that if you want.
We never got that time. You got to go.
Can you get it out in 10 minutes or distill it, like in 5?
Oh, man.
Is that doable?
I don't know. It feels very forced now, though.
All
Very
right.
contrived.
I saw... Let me just... I'll keep it simple.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of a butterfly, and on the butterfly's wings, it had evolved. This is spooky accurate. A picture of side profile of a snake, and the whole point of this butterfly, as you can imagine, is it doesn't get eaten because insects like, oh fuck a snake, I'm getting out of here, and so it survives. And my question to you was, how can that perfect picture on its wings of a snake's head have randomly evolved without some sort of driving force being passed through centuries, going a little bit more black in the eye, a little bit curvier underneath the chin, or the side of the mouth is not quite right, just a little bit? How could evolution not have slowly painted that on its wing? How can it be random? I just can't buy it.
Well, it's not random. It's natural selection. So, like I think I said to you last time, it shocks me that you love physics and you like evolution.
Why does it shock you that I like physics?
No, let me finish the sentence. You're so stressed. How sensitive are you? Get some self-belief, man. Let me finish a sentence. Fucking hell. I literally was halfway through the sentence. What do you mean? Fuck, I didn't realize I was fucking standing on my toes the whole time. Fuck, I would have been much more gentle till now. Okay, let me be very careful how I phrase the sentence then.
Sorry, I bit you then.
Just
Fuck.
You do need some self-belief, my friend. You need some mantras.
Go. Sorry.
All I was going to say was appreciating physics for the science it is, which is great, and people do it. I always feel like that's actually a step. Like, you've skipped one, which is less complicated in certain ways, which is, like, I would say evolution in terms of understanding it. And I feel like it's more related to the real world. So, like, as someone who loves science, it always surprises me when people skip that and go to physics, let's say, because evolution is like the story of everything. It's the best, it's the cleanest, it's the most magical. I learned it in year 11. It clicked in my head. I finally got it. And after that, it changed my life. Like, there's no scientific concept which I can so cleanly remember.
So
like,
what is happening?
Year 11.
What is happening to that butterfly?
All it is, as you got to remember.
From a million years ago.
Yeah, a million years, yeah.
7 million years ago to now. How did it know to slowly craft a snake's head?
It's as simple as, all you got is 100 butterflies, right? and one of them they're all just flying around getting eaten, right? And then one of them and this is what I was saying, it could be a mutation or it could be just natural selection. It varies on how big the difference is. But essentially, of those ones that get eaten, the one that has the thing, even if it's nowhere near where it ends up, the one that has a thing on its back which looks tiny bit like it, right? That one will, on average, survive more.
Gotcha. I'm with you so far. So then that
breeds, right? So the ones that it breeds will have a higher chance of having this shape or whatever, right?
And then how come the next ones that breed look more snaky than the previous
because
ones?
All that's happening is they're not doing anything. They're just breeding, right? And they've got a kind of shape. So it has one. So the first one had like the tiniest 1% of what it ended up looking, right? It has a bunch of kids. A lot of them don't have anything. Some of them have the same shape. Maybe one of them has a 1.1% slightly better clarity of the snake shape on it. So again, over a ridiculously long length of time, the one that has the thing that looks more like a snake is the one that survives and passes on its genes. So all that's happening is it has 10 kids. One of them is like almost the same, but just a tiny bit more snake-like. And because of that tiny, tiny advantage over a big enough length of time, that one survives and has kids. So all that happens is that keeps repeating, where the one who has 0.1% higher advantage than the one before of its 10 kids, that one gets selected because it doesn't get eaten. Because the insects are coming to eat it. It goes first for the most obvious ones. It leaves the one that's the most up for question.
How does it refine? How does it become somewhat of a high-resolution pic of a snake?
Because of this exact thing. So all it does is, so the first one's 1% of the final image. It has 10 kids. Of those, most don't have any. One's 1%, but then one is 1.1% clarity.
Looks a little bit more snaky.
Tiny bit snaky.
Than the previous one.
That's it. Just a tiny bit. Only one of them has to, or two of them, whatever.
And then they survive.
And then they survive, and then they have kids. And again, most of them are probably 0. Some of them might be 1.
And
one
then the next one,
and then one's 1.2%.
A little bit even more snaky.
Yeah. Of the 10 it has, there's one that gets selected just by fluke that has that is a bit more. So all it is like nature is selecting by constantly going for the least like that because it's killing those ones first. So all it has
it's done a marvelous job.
Yeah, man. Look at have you seen the
like? How did it know? It has no concept of what a snake looks like.
All it's doing is avoiding a snake. It's
Yeah.
not knowing anything. It's just avoiding a snake. So it avoids the thing that looks kind of like a snake.
But that avoidance, isn't that a driving force?
It doesn't want to get eaten.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It just doesn't want to get eaten. So you don't go for the one that looks like a snake. You go for the one that's got no snake on it. Even if it's tiny bit like a snake, you're going to go for the one that's got 0 snake.
Isn't there something that's telling it look a little bit more snaky than the previous batch?
No, see, that's the big mistake that people don't realize. That's part of what the selfish gene, which is, if you want to read the Richard Dawkins, as crazy as some of the stuff he says now, he has done, his selfish gene for me is one of my 3 cornerstone books of my life, I would say, in terms of everyone should read it. And it just sums up in that. He calls it selfish gene as the idea of genes selfishly trying to stay alive. But he's like, obviously, they're not selfish. They're just staying alive. They're just repeating themselves. And so the big thing that he realized, he figured out in the selfish gene was basically, he goes, everyone used to think of animals against each other, but it's not animals against each other. It's genes against each other. So that's what everything is. So the gene is trying to survive, and that's what gets passed on. So he goes down to the smallest package of the thing that gets passed on is a gene, with his blue eyes. You got a snake shape on you, whatever, those genes. And then they're battling each other, essentially, within the group to then survive of those. But the whole thing is, there's no selection going on in terms of, there's no choice. All it is one lives and one dies. So, and that's all that happens. And the genes are going to keep just reproducing because that's what they want to do. The ones that get killed off, you don't see them anymore. And all that's left is the one that is the best chance of surviving. So you start off in one thing, and then slowly over time it gets funneled through natural selection into being the most survivable. So all they're ever doing is getting eaten.
Which happens to be a fucking high-res picture of a snake on its wings.
Because slowly, it was the insects were choosing between who do I eat, the one with a high-res pic or the one with bloody video recorder quality
like a butterfly, yeah.
Yeah, or the one that's got almost high-res but not quite as good. I'm going to go for that one because that one doesn't look as much high-res as the other one. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So all it is, it just keeps killing off the least like that. So
it's almost like why I'm fascinated about evolution is what you're describing is, imagine the insects just in a hypothetical universe. It's a bizarre concept, but let's say the insects could read text and the insects could understand do not eat me. This butterfly has evolved millions of years for its wings to say do not eat me.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. That's what would happen.
And that freaks me out.
Yeah.
Do not eat me has been written on these wings
over
millions of years. And
Yeah.
you're saying millions of texts, pixelated dots were printed all over the insects, but
see,
the ones that
here's where-
survived
yeah, but
were the
here's-
ones that
but here's-
joined to make an N.
No.
O,
But
T.
see, here's where you're making the mistake, and this is where this
Okay.
is a common misconception as well. Because you got to remember, it's like how everyone says, the classic example is, it'd be great if you could have an eye on the back of your head. If you had an eye on the back of your head in the jungle, you'd live better than people with two eyes on the front because you can see behind you. That doesn't happen, right? You can't. You're never going to go from not effective to let you survive to effective to letting you survive. So if it doesn't look like do not, the thing is, you're talking about letters. Those don't mean anything until they mean something, right? With the snake shape, it still kind of looks like a snake even when it's nothing. So you got to remember, every step of the way, it has to be providing an advantage. It can't just magically happen at the end. Or every step, and that's the whole point. Like even the ones who, like there's animals that swing from tree to tree. They've got like the wingspan and they do it. Like how does that evolve? It's like, well, all it has to do is when it jumps from tiny bit higher off the ground, it gets a tiny advantage. But then slowly over time, that gets picked and picked and picked until it's like now can fly. But every step of the way, it has to be providing an advantage in the environment for it to last.
That's wow, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
wow.
amazing. Yeah,
because I've often like looked at us as a species, and I forget the guy's name, but he believes that we're going to be married to AI soon. Like we're going to have chips inside us. Kurtzman, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that. I think that once someone starts doing it, everyone else is going to be forced to do it because of the advantages the human being will have. It'll be far superior to an organic.
Well, I don't think forced is probably the wrong word. Who wouldn't want to do it, really? I mean, we're already halfway there. You got a phone in your hand. It's like now
you got anti-vaxxers. You're going to have organics.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
And they'll be look. It's going to be. You wouldn't want to be the first one to do it, but I would say that is the future of. Like, if you can expand your brain to levels unheard of before, why wouldn't you want to do it? Essentially.
Yeah, do you see how Musk is working on? They've already got like a chip that sits in the cerebral cortex that you can access through Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And it stops your Parkinson's shakes.
Yeah.
So normally patients would be taking orphanedrine citrate, which has a few side effects, which is unwanted. Even a 50 milligram dose, they found that was too much for the body over time. So they couple of patients, they put an implant in, they started shaking, they got their iPhones, took them a while to input the code because but and accessed it, bang, stopped the shakes.
Yeah, I mean, like
that's AI inside us, and pacemakers to a lesser extent.
Pacemakers, that's what I mean. It's always funny to look at this on a spectrum because people can be like it's magical, whatever. Funnily enough, I just had a scientist on my bookish yesterday. She does nanotechnology, focusing on brain science, so biomaterials within the brain, and she was talking about what's required for that because you hear nanotechnology and you're like, wow, that's crazy shit, which it is, but obviously like the way she was describing it's essentially kind of like that as well. All you're seeing is better and better systems to provide the drugs and the therapy to the brain, but it's not AI. It's just doing like you're still triggering it from outside, and it might be like why you want to trigger it is because you might have like, as she was describing, you might have like 3 drugs that need to be released at different times. So you put the gel with the nanotech and the stuff in there, and then you've got like the first one which is a quick release, then you got a second one which is like a slow release, and you got a third one which is like when this environmental trigger happens. She said she would use UV for it. It releases the third one. So at that point, we're not talking AI yet. And just like with Parkinson's, that's not AI. That's just a pacemaker that's more detailed and more specific. The one that's using Musk is he's talking about the stuff where you connect the Neuralink, where you connect your brain to a computer so you can actually like interact with it. But even there, it's like not the ones where you can tell a computer what to do because it gives a shit, but the ones where you can like access the actual computer. So imagine you could Google in your head and shit like that. That's the cool shit, and that's later.
Sometimes I get really pessimistic, and I think we're all going to kill ourselves on this planet. And
fair enough.
What I did was I looked at there's something that we've done that can't be taken back. Voyager in 1977, and I'm like, if we kill ourselves and blow ourselves up, at least we've got Voyager, right? To say, hey, we were here, we did some sort of accomplishment. We understood that the universe is made up of atoms, and we kind of had an idea on this beautiful. And I Googled how far is Voyager going to get. And these fucking geeks extrapolated that the record, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, I'm not sure, I think it's Voyager 1, is, you know how the Milky Way is like kind of like on this plane? Voyager 1 is above it slightly, so it's going through less dust. And they reckon it's got a lifespan of 5 billion years. It's going to survive this trajectory that it's going to escape our solar system, the Oort cloud, in 100,000 fucking years, man. 100,000. That's just our solar system. And then it's going to start this journey for 500 million years. It's not going to go close to any real star. It's going to survive. The disks are going to be intact for 5 billion years, and it's going to survive, they believe, a merger with the Andromeda galaxy. And then, who knows, if we kill ourselves, maybe in 4 billion years, a species may fucking find this on the side of their solar system, bring it in, play a record, and go, oh, these fuckers.
Yeah, they got some tunes. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah. They
They do
blew
love
themselves up, but fuck.
Yeah. Stock. That's what we
Stock.
do. We do it. No, that's a look. I don't know. That side you hear about. Apparently, there's a thing where people have that attitude where like, oh, part of us will survive or something, and like that kind of thing, and how that's actually a negative because a lot of people do that. It's like this whole space race. It's like, oh, we'll leave and go somewhere. It's like, man, no, fix here.
Yeah.
Don't talk about we're gonna live on. That's useless to me or to my kids because they're dead. Like, as in, none of that shit matters. I don't give a fuck about where Voyager is in 500 million years. I care about what the weather's like tomorrow. Like, that's
I know.
way more important. About, oh no, but it's kind of cool that like 500 million years from now. It's like, no, it's not.
I think it is.
I care about the fact that glaciers are around. Give me some glaciers instead.
No, but
Forget
I'm just...
Voyager. Give me some fucking glaciers. I'd much prefer that.
Yeah, look, I know where you're coming from, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think if shit hits the fan, like it looks like we are going to blow each other up, at least we've got some sort of receipt in the universe that we existed. And I think
Mate.
that's better than nothing at all.
When you're walking through the radioactive wasteland and someone comes up and goes, how do we do this? You can be like, yeah, but a part of us is surviving up in space. And they're like, why would we want to survive?
Yeah.
Wipe that one out as well. Fuck that. I've sent messages I regretted before. I don't want to let that one last either.
True.
Fucking get rid of it, man.
Yeah, I don't understand the fascination about like going to Mars and living there. I mean, I went through the outback of Australia. It's fucking harsh, man. And I reckon Mars is 10 times harsher.
Man,
It looks like the outback.
It's the dumbest shit.
I wouldn't want to. It's minus 270 degrees and looks like the red earth of Australia. It's just fuck. There's nothing there. It's so hard to look. I don't know. Matt Damon proved that it's really hard to live there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go.
But also, and this is the whole fucking thing about space, and that's what annoys me about how billionaires made space lame, because they totally did. It used to be cool, now it's shit. Because the whole point of space is that it's meant to be the last part of us peaking. It's not meant to be like the only part, especially when it's like space. I have a mate who's like all defensive. He's crypto and he's Elon Musk. He's like, mate, I'll be flying space. What you'll be down here? I'm like, man, space is shit. It's you in a room with a glass thing. Give me good technology. You can do that here. The only difference is maybe you can't be floating. That's it. All the rest is you interacting with your tech in a different space, but you can't live that. You're not living it. You're just in a room seeing shit. Like, I can do that at home.
The SpaceX crew, they just landed yesterday and their dunny broke, so they landed with nappies on. Like, is that, like, there must be, if they're aliens watching, they go, oh, look, they've got their diapers on. That's cute. Good job.
It's also like, man, like, that's the whole thing. Is people like, oh, go to space. Like, man,
And
go
it's
to
not really,
Antarctica.
it's not really, yeah.
That's way better.
Way better. It's not
The
even
Amazon.
space. It's like dipping your toe in the beach and going, ooh, I went in the beach today. No, you didn't. I mean, they reckon space starts. Like Musk is, who was it? Bezos has gone closest to where space actually begins.
Yeah, because they're in low orbit still, aren't they?
All that stuff.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's like, man, it's not that special. Like, as in, it's cool as an extra thing, but like, if you got to pick between going to space and going to some cool places here on Earth, it'd be way better because you can smell them. Like, you're just seeing glass and then that thing. It's like, yeah, it's awesome, but not the way that people think it's like that good. Like, compared to seeing anywhere on Earth, basically.
One thing that fascinates me that I stay in touch with every now and then, they release about an article every 6 months. The Chinese, how they're building an artificial sun. It's fucking brilliant, man.
What?
They've created this magnetic. It looks like a donut, right, with a hole in it. Magnetic, and it swirls hydrogen atoms.
Magnets. That's how they do it, mate.
Magnets. So they swirl these hydrogen atoms at like super high speeds, and they generated, for the first time ever, they successfully fused hydrogen and got more energy than they put in at 120 million degrees Celsius, but it only lasted for a nanosecond and then collapsed. But a crack was made to the other side. Like, they did it. They
This is here on Earth?
Yeah, the Chinese.
Yeah, they're doing it here on Earth somewhere in China.
Yeah.
Making suns.
Yes, mini suns. How good is that?
Sounds worrying.
It's fucking amazing. I love that shit. China's going to take over the world, and I'm all for it. I love their food, and I think they're awesome people.
Nah, man, you can't have this authoritarian regime, bruh.
Yeah, man.
Nah, man, that'd be.
Do you know that they passed a law saying that? Put it this way: they've got this law in place now that if you, George Dimarelos, headline at the Hong Kong Comedy Club, and they don't like what you say, they can lock you up for 9 years for terrorism. So don't go with shit jokes, because it's just go get this cunt in jail.
Come on, that's what you're loving. You're like, finally.
Yeah.
All right.
They're proper nuts, right? The government of China, they're proper nuts, but they get shit done. They knocked coronavirus on the head. They welded people shut inside their homes, but they flattened their curve. All right, they even fixed the numbers, but still they flattened their curve. And I think China would get shit done in space, outer space, and inner space here.
Look, they do it. Look, they got a lot of money. They got a lot of centralized bureaucracy. Is a very powerful tool when you use it, and that's why everyone look through history. If you want to go into history, man, I fucking love history as well. The whole thing is when people have to choose between freedom and safety, everyone always picks safety because that's just how we are. Because in the end, you want to protect those around you that you love, whatever. So people would rather live in an authoritarian regime than in a free country if they got to pick between being safe and being controlled. Also, authoritarianism means you can focus resources better than in just anything goes everywhere because there's safety and the security, so people can invest, people can do all that. But there's an upper bound to it where it starts hitting like against the issues of too many people protecting their own interests, and then all of a sudden it starts falling apart. And the Soviet Union's the classic example of that. Everyone was talking about how it was going to take over the world, and then it hit that point where it's like, oh no, actually, all the countries in power aren't leaving, so they start controlling everything, and then it just starts falling apart because they stop allowing change to happen. And it's just a curse of any political system, basically. So
pretty much.
Yeah.
I've got to stop there. We've got to continue. Come back next time.
Yeah. All right.
We'll take off from history because I didn't know you're a history buff. I love history as well.
Oh man, hardcore history.
Just like I don't know. I like
the podcast. Not saying hardcore history.
Oh right. Yeah, I'm not hardcore history. Like fuck yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Fucking Caesar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, quick plug. Where can we see you, or how do we access your stuff?
Just the best is follow me on Instagram, whatever, George What Up, but also Bookish Comedy.
Yes.
Follow that. You see some memes. Have a laugh. I've got my own podcast as well called Book open bracket ish close bracket, which is a good time as well. So if you want to do that, that's everything.
Thanks a lot, Georgie.
No worries.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks.